Hello, White Forest Focus. The season's over. There's plenty of lessons to learn and plenty to talk about around recruitment, new contracts, and player exits. We'll also discuss Morgan Gibbs-White missing out on the England squad in the company of, first of all, one of two Reds players joining us today in Kelvin Wilson. Kelvin, good morning. How are you doing?
Good morning. I'm good, thanks.
Good. Good to have you with us. And our second guest is former Reds midfielder Lewis McGugan. Lewis, how are you after a few technical problems?
Yeah, a few technical problems, but yeah, glad to be here.
Good to have you with us. Good to have you with us as ever. Kick us off, Lewis, if you would actually then. Thoughts on the season, just in terms of, is it a success by staying up? Would we count it as a failure? What are your thoughts on it in general?
Yeah, I think you look at it from both sides. I think it's always a success staying in the Premier League. I think that's where any football club in this country wants to be, and we've got to be thankful of we have stayed up. But again, I think if you look across the whole season, I think there's a lot of things that have happened, good and bad, but especially the negatives of it, and a lot of change and a lot of upheaval. So everyone will go away now, the manager, the players and the staff and the owners, and hopefully they can all work together because, yes, granted, we want to be in the Premier League, but I don't think we want the continuous of trying to survive on the last few weeks of the season. So I think it's a big summer for the football club in so many areas, and hopefully, fingers crossed, that they get it right.
If you were giving it a grade, Kelvin, roughly, would you be going like B, C, D, E? What would you give it?
Probably a C. You know, it's more a relief than a success. You know, end of the season's come and we've stayed up, so it's more relief than anything else. Especially me personally, I think there's a lot to build on for next season because this is the second season. It's been identical, really. Big turnover of players, and again, just staying up by the skin of our teeth. But so it needs change. There has to be some kind of change into recruitment. Whether Nuno stays as well, that's the big question. But there has to be some kind of change and dramatic improvement for next season.
Do you want Nuno to stay? What's your take on how the job he's done now? You've had 6 months of him.
Yeah, I think he deserves it. I think he deserves to have a pre-season and a good crack at it. I'm not saying he's going to get a sack. He might want to leave on his own terms, but yeah, I think he deserves a good crack at it from the start, from pre-season, and go from there.
What about the lessons learned, Lewis? I mean, it's obvious ones like defend set pieces better and stuff like that. But when you look at the things that have gone wrong and the things that are pretty easily addressed, what kind of things are you thinking of that we can look at?
Yeah, I think it's one of them all across the board. Really, I think that there's a lot of areas that we've come that we haven't come up to standard, and I think there's probably a lot more areas than we think what we have to try and improve. I know the alarm. Everyone talks about set pieces and all these little things into that, but I think first and foremost, I think we've got to get a formula and a foundation of the way that we want to go about playing in this Premier League with this team. Hopefully, now with the manager having the summer and having the chance of shaping the squad and working over pre-season, come the start of next season, if he is still here, we'll have a real strong understanding of the way he wants to go about things. I've said previous before that when a manager comes in mid-season, it's really difficult sometimes, especially when the position in the table is not the best, and more so the plans that he may have, it was kind of out the window, and it's needs must just to try and stay in the Premier League. So first and foremost, he's done that. Along that way, there's a lot of information that I'm sure that is going to help him and his staff, good and bad, to move forward into pre-season. But I think all across the board that we need to be better.
Morning to people who are with us. Lots of people in the comments. Most of them are about how Kelvin's looking fit this morning, but or buff, but as well.
I'm on holiday, so I'm just I'm in the lobby, so I've got my vest. I'm ready to go around the pool after I've done this. So yeah, that's why.
That's why. Yeah. What about lessons learned for you, Kelvin? I suppose defensively mainly, but what are you picking out of things that we need to improve on?
Well, obviously, being a defender myself, I think set pieces are a massive thing. I think that's what's cost us a lot of games this season. Conceded the most from set pieces. It was getting beyond the joke. At one stage, it was every week conceding a goal from it. So I think that's something that needs to be addressed, which I'm sure will, because they'll look at the stats of all over the pitch and things that have happened, good and bad. And I'm sure they'll want to address that. But I think Nuno coming in, going back to that, it was, he just needed to find a formula to stay up. So he's not probably stamped his imprint on the players, what he wants, really. He just needed a way just to win games. So I think giving him a pre-season to put his stamp on the way he wants to play and stuff, I think that will improve the team anyway in general, because they'll have a clear term of reference of what he wants and how he wants to play. And I think for me, mainly going back to it is set pieces. I know that's not the only reason we lost games, but I think you take away a lot of them goals, we get a hell of a lot more points out of games.
I don't have the stats to hand, but I think the last 5 or 6 games we probably only conceded 1 goal or something like that from set pieces, which maybe coincided with Willy Boly coming back into the team. Kelvin, he signed his new contract 1 year with a further option of another one. 33, so obviously vastly experienced. Is that a smart bit of obvious business for you, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think he's already there. He knows the club now. He's been there for a season. They just need to manage him. Obviously, his injuries have been a problem. They need to manage him, training wise throughout the week, and try and keep him fit for games. Again, he'll be able to play the amount of games that they need him to. I don't know. But again, if they manage him right, the Premier League are lucky in the sense of, not lucky, should I say, but if you're not playing in Europe, you're only playing Saturday. So it's not like the Championship where you're playing Saturday, Tuesday. So he'll get that rest time, I'm sure. But I think it's an obvious signing. I think keep him, the experience he's got, and they probably looked at the set pieces and thought he's the only one that's really, he attacks the ball and he defends it well. They probably looked at the stats when he's playing and the goals conceded from set pieces than when he's not playing. So I'm sure that isn't the only reason why they signed him off that stat. But yeah, I think it's a good decision for Forest to give him another year at that. Even at the age he is, the experience around the other players, especially if Murillo stays as well, he's still a young boy. So I'm sure Boly will help him a lot.
Aina as well, Lewis staying for another year. I mean, it's sort of exciting sort of question, isn't it? That was a bit of a no-brainer, wasn't it? We weren't going to let him go, were we?
Yeah, no, I think along with obviously prior to his injury, Nico Williams, I think over the last kind of 6 weeks, I think he's been a real standout performer, and I think he's got better and better, and I think he's a really, I think he's been a really strong kind of foundation. More so if you look at the emergence and the upturn in performance of Hudson-Odoi along that side, I think it's helped with him behind him, and maybe that's a partnership that they can continue to try and flourish into next season.
One of the things I remember you saying previously, Lewis, on here is that managers tend to have a group of 14 to 16 that they really trust. Do you think it looked to me like Nuno had got that down, especially down to probably about 12 or 13 when it came to the starting 11? Sometimes it was Niakate who dropped out, sometimes it was Elanga, but it felt like we got pretty close to him knowing an 11 by the end of the season finally. Yeah,
it always kind of end up when a manager goes in and he has that time with the players, and over time he'll make that kind of development and understand what he's got at his disposal. And normally it tends to be, you'll see that he'll have his starting 11, but he'll also have 3 or 4 kind of players on the side that are his kind of go-to any opportunity. Maybe one player has to come out through suspension or injury. It's normally that little 3 or 4 group that normally comes straight back in. And I think if you look across the leagues and the teams that have all been successful, I think that's a massive part that they have. They have that core kind of 14 players, maybe 16, and they're the focal point, and that's just the way sometimes it works. And unfortunately, I don't think we've had that structure. I think when Nuno's coming over the time, he's been quite stern with what he wants to do. And I think, like you said, over these last 8 weeks, I think we've seen the personnel that maybe he wants to go forward with into next season.
There's a bit of a clear out, I guess, Kelv, in terms of all the loan players went back, Hennessy and Kouyaté leaving at the end of their contracts. Was that sensible for you when you look at the loan players? Was there any you would have kept? I don't know if I would have, but any that maybe you would have considered?
No, probably not. No, I think like Louis said, he'll have his 14 to 16 players in his head. I'm sure he'll want to add to it as well now. Probably some of them that he had in his head that he trusted, he probably won't want to go into a new season with them. So players might leave as well now. So I think going back to keeping him, I think it's just giving him that fresh start of pre-season to bring in what he wants and what he feels he needs. And then, not that I'm saying he's ever used any excuse, but then there's no excuses for the manager because he's had what he wants, and he's been given a fair crack at it. So who he's going to bring in and what we're going to bring in, I've got my opinions on it. I'm sure everyone has. So it'll be interesting to see what Nuno does.
What's your opinions? Who would you like? What kind of players would you like to see us bring in?
I think the centre forward's a must. Chris Wood's been brilliant for us, of course. But I just feel we need a centre forward. I don't think Chris Wood's going to play all the games every game. He runs himself into the ground. So a centre forward's a must for me. And going back to it, I think maybe a centre off. But that's depending on what happens with Gibbs-White as well. If Gibbs-White or Murillo leave, I think it's a replacement for either of them, because Gibbs-White, I take him out of the team. I can't see anyone who can find that pass, who can unlock defences. I think he's the luxury player that we've got. So if he goes, I think we need to replace that, which, them number 10s, Lewis was one, but they cost a lot of money. They're like strikers. So whether we'll be able to find one to match Gibbs-White. And then with Murillo, if he goes, obviously, then you have to bring in a centre half. Again, you're going to get someone of his quality. He was, a diamond in the rough. You don't find many like that. So, yeah, it'll just be interesting to see who leaves then to be replaced.
Yeah, I guess that's the big question, Lewis. Who goes? What about you in terms of bringing players in, assuming that Gibbs-White and Murillo stay, and then we'll branch out from there. But what are we looking at? What do we need to finish higher than 17th next season?
Yeah, I agree with Kel. I think every season, no matter kind of how you do, I think you always, as a striker, I think you're always trying to refresh and look at that striking option. I think it's because it's such an important part of the team. So I think that's a kind of non-negotiable that will happen, along with, I say, Chris Wood's done brilliant for us, but he's getting a little bit older. Again, like Kel said, he's probably not going to be wanting to play, expected to play as many games as he probably did this season. I think if you look with Taiwo, I'm not sure what's really happened there. I think since his injury, he's not really been the same. He's come back in little bits, but again, he hasn't really looked like himself. So that's a big summer going to happen in terms of him. What he's going to do, what the club wants to do with him. Is he going to come back with a different mentality? I've always kind of said previously, I think we need a real top centre midfielder that also brings in Sangare. What is going to be the decision on him? Are they going to kind of think, right, okay, it's not worked out and cut the losses, or allow him to have a pre-season, try and integrate him in and to be a focal point of why they brought him? Again, that's just what's needed anyway. And then if you lose one of the big two, then yeah, you have to try and replace them. But as Kel said, it's not going to be very easy, either of them, because they bring so much to the team, and they are a real important part of the team. So them players, to have that impact, to bring them in and to find them, they're not going to be cheap, and it just depends where we are financially.
Sangare and Taiwo kind of the kind of elephants in the room, I guess, Kelvin, in the sense that we need them to step up, and we can't really sell them. I mean, you can't sell Taiwo for what he was worth a year ago because of his injuries, and you can't sell Sangare because he hasn't done a lot. So do we have to rely on them, or would you get rid of maybe one of them at least?
I don't know. I think Taiwo, that's injuries you can't help. I'm towards the end of my career, I was injured quite a bit, you know. So I know it's feeling, it's frustrating. It's a fault of not himself. It's not his own fault. It is frustrating. So with him, I think they've got to look at how to manage him and to get him on the pitch. That's as simple as that. Because when he is playing, is a problem. But it's getting him on that pitch. And like Lewis said, to be fair, when he has come back in, you know, little spells, and he's not looked the same player at all. He's a million miles off it, a million miles. So they need to address that and see how they can manage him. I think with Singare, you know, I think he's a good player. I think he's a really good player. For whatever reason, it's not happened so far at Nottingham Forest. I don't know if it's the style that Forest play. I don't know if he's had fallouts with people. I don't know, but he looks a shell of a player. You know, he's a top player. So that you don't lose that overnight. You know, they need to work and find a solution how they can get the best out of him. Or if he's not in their plans, yeah, they're going to have to move him on. But, you know, I think if you play him or Yates, you don't play both of them. And obviously they've opted for Yates. I think in the situation that they were in, that was the right decision, because Yates is a battler. He's going to win you the ball. He's just a dogged player. So I think in that situation that you're in, bottom of the table, needing to stay up, he was probably the right player. I think Singare is the more laid-back one, wants to play more. And I don't think Forest was at the stage where they could play like that. You know, the pace he probably wanted to play at. Now, if Nuno's style that he's going to, you know, bring to Forest it suits Singare, then he's going to keep him and play him. But I think if Nuno wants to get rid of him, that's obviously telling you that he's not in his plans or the way he wants to play.
Quick word for our sponsors before we move on. Trent Navigation, of course, Forza Fest. I know Greg's asking for people to support it as much as they can, help pay for the fantastic bands who are playing. So it's on Saturday, June the 8th. Tickets are £15 from gigantic.com or the Trent Navigation website. And there's a QR code on the screen. And also at the Trent Navigation is our live show on Thursday, June the 13th. I'll drop links for getting tickets in the description and the live chat, but Lewis will be on the panel. Kelvin was going to be, but he's unavailable. But I'm going to keep badgering Kelvin to do one of the live shows. But Gary's joining us this time, and then we'll have other podcast regulars as well. So Thursday, the 13th of June at the Nav. Sure to be another good night to look ahead to another season of Premier League football. Going back to the squad makeup, Lewis, there's other players coming back from loan deals. Worrell, Dennis, Omar Richards is an interesting one. Oral Mangala, we don't quite know what's happening there. And then more fringe players like O'Brien, Mighton, Wang Yijo and Josh Bowler. Any of the names there, particularly, I guess, the first four, could any of those have a future? I guess we don't know what's happening with Mangala, but Worrell, Dennis and Richards are probably the ones I'm thinking of.
Yeah, it's. I think it's some of them is totally up in the air. I think as footballers, I'm sure Kelvin will agree that sometimes when you're in them stages, you go out on loan with a manager at the club, and as you're out on loan, that manager changes at your parent club, and it's maybe an opportunity now to go back with a clean slate. So some of them players will be with the mindset of, I think my time's done at Nottingham Forest. It's probably best for all parties to look elsewhere. And some players we were looking at it and think, no, I can't wait to get back into pre-season because I feel that I've got a kind of a better opportunity. I've got a blank canvas for the new manager to look at me, and I'm quite confident that I can show what I can do. So you'll always get a few surprises. That you'll get players that will come back in out of nowhere, and the manager will take a liking to them, and they'll be involved. So I wouldn't be surprised that if out of that group that you just said, that there's one or two that maybe stick around for large parts of pre-season. You look at the ones with Joe. Joe was obviously still at the club thing, so I'm not sure where that kind of lies with that and what he will want to do. I think maybe it might be best for him with the great time and the stuff that he's done for the football club. It might be a good time to say goodbyes and him go on to a different challenge, but that will remain to be seen. But I think definitely out of them coming back, there's another influx of players, and it's up to Nuno now and his staff and the owners to now sort that out and to go through them players and to try and get the ones what are not needed off the wage bill.
I guess we can't put ourselves in Joe's head, Kelvin, but if it was you and you were coming back to a football club as club captain where you're probably going to be fourth or fifth choice centre half realistically and you're 27, 28 years old, do you feel like it's probably best to move on, or do you want to stay and fight for your place no matter what?
No, he's going to have to move on. Nuno's he sent him out on loan, so that's telling him there that he wasn't his plans when they need to stay up. So they need the big players, they need the important players. He's let him go out on loan, so that's telling Joe what he thinks of him. To be fair, in all due respect, I think the players that were already out on loan before he got the job, he would have had a conversation with these players by now as well, just saying, come back do pre-season, or you're not in my plans. With them or their agents, he would have spoke to them. So I'm sure they know anyway where they stand. But especially Joe, I think he will have to find a new club this summer. And I think, like Louis said, he needs to sort out the players that he don't want so he can free up some money to bring players in.
Thanks to Dan in the comments for saying that we've got the makings of a good five-a-side team. 2 of the 3 have got the makings of a good five-a-side team. I'm not sure about me, but if you can recruit maybe, I don't know, Andy Reid and Chris Cohen or something like that, that'd be a decent five-a-side team, certainly. One of the other factors of the season, Lewis, has been kind of the off-field stuff, points deductions, VAR, rows, that kind of thing. Some of it in our hands, some of it not. There's been kind of a consensus. There's so much chaos around Forest that it's, is an issue. But as you've been in dressing rooms where, Fawaz was the owner, Billy was the manager, and there was a lot of media stuff around that. Is it really a distraction for players or not, do you think?
To an extent, I think that's a lot of the outside noise where it's maybe kind of just got a bit too much this season. Understandably, with the points deduction, understanding with the VAR, and thinking that the decision, what's happened, and I agree on some of the decisions. But I think that I think everyone really connected. If we can kind of take that, bring that outside noise down, and kind of let it just mellow, I think that's what we don't want. We don't want this constant kind of talking every week about this, about that. We want to go about our work quietly, efficiently. And I think if we look at next season, I think that might be a big kind of thing to speak from everyone, players, staff, owners, and most importantly fans, is just to be a bit more kind of outside off the pitch. We just go about our work, do the stuff on the pitch, and let that do the talking.
What about from your point of view, Kelvin, having played, obviously Forest are a big club, but you played at Celtic, which was just a massive club with a noise around it every day. Is Lewis right? We need to kind of dial it down as much as we can, do you think?
Yeah, without a doubt. I think it is a distraction at times, especially when it's, not saying that VAR it was rubbish for us. Some of the decisions that were given to us were terrible. But, it's giving players excuses at times. Not that alone, but things, and you want to take that away. That's why a lot of people say that players get the backside wiped because, clubs and managers want everything to be perfect for the players so they can go and perform on the pitch, and there's no excuse for the players then. With Forest, it's been one thing after another, hasn't it? It's constantly something to moan about, and which at times has been rightly so. But it'll be nice to try and go into the season with no excuses, moaning about nothing, and hopefully VAR's, thrown out this year, and we can crack on and have a good season.
But do you think it will be? Or do you think VAR will be here still?
I don't think it will. I think they'll get rid of it. I think it's been a disaster this season, and I think they've realised that, and it's cost teams points, which, it's not. This isn't like a friendly league where, unlucky. It's a lot of money being spent, and managers costing people the jobs, their livelihoods. If managers get the sack for bad decisions from VAR, that's someone's job. So it's serious. It's not. I know we can laugh about it and stuff, but for football clubs and managers, it is serious because it's costing them money potentially, and people's careers, jobs.
What about you, Lou? I think it'll still be here. I don't think they'll vote it down.
Yeah. Like to be honest, it should be got from the start, it's not been fit for purpose. We all know that. But it should be gone. Everyone wants it gone. The problem that we have is the people at the top. It's all about saving face, and they should have got rid of it a long time ago. But again, it's all these people that they've put into these positions, all this big and song and dance that they've made about it. They know that it's not working. Like I said, it's every single week, every single different games. There's always talking points. There's always crazy decisions. But again, I think from their point of view, we're always talking about it. There's always talking about voice. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. So the people that have brought it in, and the people that are in power of it, we're actually helping them because it's a constant theme every single week, every single day. It's all everyone's talking about. So I think again, the people at the top will still keep it, even though it's not fit for purpose. And unfortunately, that's just the way a lot of these things go. I think that if it was down to the fans and the players and the staff, we could get some kind of something in order and understand that it's made the game worse. But unfortunately, we're not the ones making the decisions, and it's the people that don't really involved on a day-to-day footballing basis make the decisions.
One of the other things I wanted to discuss, and it's really early to do this, Kelvin, but the makeup of the Premier League next season with the promoted clubs coming up. There's Ipswich, their manager might go, and all sorts of stuff like that. But when you look at other clubs like Brentford, seems to be regressing a bit. Everton have got uncertainty. Wolves don't seem to have much money. There's a lot of stuff going on at a lot of clubs. Like Chelsea have lost their manager. But how are you feeling about the makeup of the league next season and where we might fit in? Is it just a case of any improvement is a success?
I don't know about any improvement is a success. I think, with the money that's been spent at Forest over the last 2 seasons and the amount of players they've brought in and the quality of some of the players as well, they should be higher. Shouldn't be now thinking, right, if we finish 18th, 19th, like 16th, 17th, 16th, 15th, whatever, it's a success. No, I think Forest should be a mid-table team now, and then building on that. That's my opinion, and I think the owner thinks that as well. With the players that they've signed, the Singares and these players here, they should be higher. If you look at the other teams, what they spend, I know it's not just about money, but to a certain extent it is, because it's the caliber of player you bring in, and Forest have brought in a hell of a lot of players, good players, and they should be performing a lot better as a team. Now, is that down to the managers? I don't know. Steve Cooper was brilliant, Forest legend, but it didn't work out for him. He couldn't find a formula to win enough games anyway, and now it's down to Nuno to try and do that. Whether we can, with the team we've got, I think they need to add to it. Don't get me wrong, I do think they need to add to it. But as for, do we just build on if we finish a place higher than we did last season? Absolutely not. No, I think they've got to aim as high as they can, and I think mid-table's a fair statement for Nottingham Forest to finish that position.
How far away are we off that then, when you consider all the set piece goals, points dropped from winning positions, pretty dodgy home record actually? Are those things pretty easily fixable to get us to where we need to be, or is it a big gulf to the mid-table status?
I wouldn't say it's easy to fix, but we're not a million miles off it. I know, look at the set pieces we've conceded the most in the league, etc., things like that. I just think if a manager comes in with the right way to play and he gets it through to the players and they know it to a T, going to Billy Davies, he used to call it clear term of reference, didn't he, Lewis? And he used to give every player a clear term of reference, and you knew what he wanted from you, and you knew how to do your job. He didn't want you to do anything else, didn't want you to do no more. He wants to do your job. And I think if a manager can come and, stamp that down, you never know, we could finish there next season. We should, but it's just getting that formula to a pattern of play, which I don't think it's been the case with Forest. We've looked a bit all over the place at times. I don't know I wouldn't be able to describe to someone how Forest play. Man City like possession, Everton a route one. I don't know what Forest are. I don't. So I think when we identify that, and the players do, and the manager puts his imprint on it, I think we'll have a good chance of climbing up the table.
I want to pick up on that, Lewis, with you about style of play, because I think you mentioned it as well. What was your clear term of reference from Billy, though?
It's probably too early to be
the PG version. Get the ball and score.
Yeah, it's kind of and that's, as I say, Kel's right with that, and that's the thing about it. In terms of going back to the league and your questions, Kel, about the league, I think it's going to be such a tougher league next year. I think if you look at the teams coming up now, if you look at Leicester have kept pretty much their squad, and again they're a Premiership club. If you look at Ipswich, fantastic club, fantastic stadium, really nice place to go and play football. And then you look at the playoff final, either of them, they're Premiership teams. And I think that if you look at this season, I think, okay, we've got points when we needed it, but I think we've been fortunate that the three teams that have come up have gone down. And I think we've probably got away with the fact that they've not been quite good enough to kind of stay in the league. And I think that's helped us. I don't think it's going to be the same case next year. I think all them three teams that they are Premiership teams in the field, that they're Premiership clubs, and they're going to come back into this Premier League, either Leeds or Southampton, to join them, and they're expecting to stay here for years to come. So I think, like I said, as Cal said, we've got a lot of work to do, but again, we can't be in this position because I don't think it's going to be like this season where we're going to be able to get away with it, and the teams below us are the gap is that far off us as it has been this year. So there's a lot of work to be done to get to that mid-table point. Yeah, at this point in time, it feels like a long way. I think the next point where you look at it, you look at the likes of Bournemouth, Fulham, that's the next step to get to. And that's just to get to kind of where you're in that, they're pushing for that mid-table, Palace, along them kind of teams. So I think we've got to get to that stage first. And back to Cal's point of a style of play, again, we don't really know. But what I will do, I'll give Nuno the benefit of that, because when you come in mid-season and you come in at a time, sometimes you have to do needs must, and it's what to stay in the league. And yes, you want to implement your ideas and your formation, your philosophy, but sometimes you have to drip feed it a little bit into players, because it can't happen overnight. And most important thing is to stay in this league. Now we've done that. It's now the big, like I say, it's a big summer, especially for the manager. And he has got no excuses now. And like I said, 2-3 months into next season, if he's still there, and there is question about the manager, on his behalf, there's no excuses, because that's what it is. He's had the summer, he's had pre-season, and as a manager, that's the biggest, most important time that you want. And he'll be now trying to push. Come the start of next season, hopefully we can be sitting from a fan's point of view and looking and think, right, that's how the manager of Nottingham Forest is going to play this season.
Did you see bits of styles of play emerging? I was thinking while you were answering there around kind of Murillo, Aina, Hudson-Odoi, Gibbs-White. I kind of knew what might happen when they got the ball, but then Danilo, Yates, Elanga, who I thought kind of not regressed, but he didn't have a good second half of the season. Kind of don't know what's going to happen when they get the ball. That central midfield feels like the area where we've got to dictate from a lot more, Lewis, perhaps.
Yeah, of course. And I think if you look at it as well, we still have, if you look at the especially the top end of our team, we've got really young, exciting players, but they're still inexperienced and they're still in patches. They haven't got that consistency. And that's where sometimes we find ourselves, is that one game we can go and have that performance and you think, okay, we're turning the corner. And then we kind of look like we've taken 2 steps back. And so that will be frustrating for the manager. It'll be frustrating for the players. And that's the big thing, what we need to try and do. We need to get an understanding and a formula of how we're going to do it. But we need to get a consistency. We can't be that 7, 8 out of 10, and then we drop to a 4 or 5, and because that way we are going to struggle to stay in the league. And that's where we have probably been. We've been able to get one-off performances, even with Steve Cooper. We've been able to get one-off performances and a little bit where you think, what a performance, what a result. Hopefully we've turned the corner, and then a couple of weeks later we're still discussing, right, where's it all gone wrong? And to stay in the Premier League, and if you're going to keep with that kind of same attitude, sooner or later you're going to get caught and you're going to go down. So yes, we want the manager to really have his own input on it, but I think the biggest thing is to get a consistency through the whole team.
One thing I want to ask you about, Kelvin, and come back on that if you want as well, but about a back three and a back four. I was listening to Radio 5 Live last night. They're talking about Bayer Leverkusen going unbeaten all season and saying how they play a back three. And I kind of think quite a few clubs are sort of doing it now. Man City are, in a way, really, because Walker plays as a centre-back and Vardy basically plays a winger, and Chelsea were doing it. It feels like it's coming back in fashion. Do you think back three suits us more than back four, or does it not really matter?
No, I think it does. I think a back three suits us better. I think, I'd play Boly in the middle and, Murillo and Niakate either side of him. And then I'd probably play Nico on the right and Aina on the left, because that's where, down the wings, that's where we're more dangerous, As Lewis said, I think in your midfield, it's usually your better ball players. They're the best ball players in your team. Your midfield players, they're the loose McGugans and the Gibbs-Whites. They unlock the doors. We don't have that apart from Gibbs-White, and he's at the 10. At the minute, I think our midfields are just there just to help the defence defend. They're not really there to help the attackers attack. So I think that'll be something that Nuno needs to figure out what he wants to do. If he's happy with that, using the two midfielders as holding midfielders and letting Gibbs-White just go and roam around, then so be it. But I think the main thing, going back to what Louis said, is consistency. You can't go from 8 and 9 to a 4, 5. It was constantly like that. It was like a roller coaster of performance. Sometimes I couldn't believe it. It was like, I watched Forest last week and it was like this, and now watching it's chalk and cheese. So I think that's the thing that Nuno's going to probably want to get, consistency. I think if you get that as well, you automatically start getting better performances, more points, etc., etc. So it's like a domino effect. Consistency leads on to a lot of other things, and I think that's what he'll aim to try and achieve at Forest with the players he's got. Because, like I say, they can do it, because, like we say, there was 8, 9 out of 10 a good few times this season against the bigger teams. I think it's trying to set that mindset right for when the so-called lower teams, obviously they're all Premier League teams, but compared to the big six, that he needs to try and get the players, in that mindset against them as he does in the top 6 teams.
Is that obviously you're saying it's a mentality thing? Is it a lack of leadership thing as well, a lack of Premier League experience, or is it down to individuals not having the right mental, attitude, I guess, going into some of these games? You think?
I just think it's down to experience. I think it comes with experience. You can't just turn it on and off because you're playing against the big boys. A lot of young players, I don't know them personally, but if they're playing against the Man Cities of this world and Arsenal, they're football fans as well. They're playing against players that they've watched and stuff like that. So they want to up their game. They want to prove to people that they can play at that level. So I think it comes with a lot of maturity as well with the younger players, but mainly with experience. When it becomes a little bit of the norm of playing against all these teams, I'm sure they'll get a little bit more consistent, especially with age as well. Maturity is a big thing. I know it's spoke about a lot, and you only get experience if you play. The young players are playing quite a bit, especially the wingers. They're playing quite a bit. So hopefully that'll be a knock-on effect, and next season they'll be more comfortable with playing against the top 6 sides as well as the smaller clubs, as we say. But it's just trying to find that balance where they can get the 9 out of 10s, even if it's not a 9, the 7, 8 out of 10s more often, rather than such a big drop from a 9 to a 4. He's trying to find that balance.
Do you think as well, one of the things I kind of wonder, Lewis, is the ambition and the talk is always around being mid-table. And do you think, do we ever go into these games, or do the players ever go into these games against a Burnley and a Sheffield United earlier in the season, not later, but early on, thinking, we should win this, we just have to play to a 6 out of 10, something like that. And then when we do and it doesn't happen, we get a bit of a shock in terms of the result. Was there, I don't know, is complacency the right word against some of the lower teams or not?
No, to be honest, I wouldn't say the players have been complacent and are being complacent going into the games. I make a big point all the time that how can we, when people I speak to, they say, how can we play so well against the bigger teams, and when we struggle against the likes of Burnley and Sheffield United and stuff like that, the lower teams. And I think a lot of it has got to do with the way we played in the formation. And I say to people, Nottingham Forest have always been successful since they've gone back into the Premiership, of playing in kind of a low block, sitting in, and they've had the players to counter. And that's what they've played. It's very easy to play like that. Kelvin will obviously follow on the point that when you can sit there, all you're waiting is you're just being patient, you're waiting in blocks, and you're letting them come onto you. And you're just waiting for them to make a mistake, and then we have the attacking players to go and play on that counter. When you then go and play against, when the likes of the lesser teams come to the City Ground, we have to go and be on the front foot. We have to again go beyond the ball. We have to start playing forward passes. We can't just be sitting in blocks. And it's very hard to go in between them. And sometimes you find yourself in the middle. And I think that as fans, and I'm sure that we're all aware of, when we've played the teams or when we've got to try and get a result against the bigger teams, we're not that we're not that negative. When we're going into the stadium, we're thinking, yeah, we maybe have a chance. We more worry about playing against the lesser teams. And I think it's because we still haven't worked out how to really be that front foot Premier League team and to really kind of stamp our authority on the games. And I think we need to change that mentality of, okay, we've had 2 seasons in the Premier League, we've tried to manage games, we've done that, but there needs to be a shift in mentality to go, we are now in the Premier League for 2 seasons, we need to go and stamp our authority. This is what Nottingham Forest is going to be about, and we are going to play a certain way. Of course, when you play still against the bigger teams, you have to be patient. That's just being realistic and understanding who you're playing against. But I think we need to shift away from that mentality of we just sit in, and we need to go and be on that front foot and play the football that we want to play. You
were nodding along there, Kelvin. It was interesting. I know you didn't see the Burnley game and Lewis was there. I felt to me like we just sat in and waited for them to make a mistake and won one of the rare games we've actually won really comfortably, and it seemed like the right way to play against Burnley. But is it easier, especially as a centre half, just to see the whole game in front of you, be sat in and be rigid? And that sometimes has suited us, I guess.
Oh, without a doubt, especially as a defender. It's comfortable. Everything in front of you as a defender is comfortable. The last thing you want to do is be running towards your own goal. So, if that's the instructions given as a defender, yeah, you're thinking, yes, I'm happy with that, and catch people on the counter-attack. Maybe, that's a great point from Lewis. I've not looked at it like that. Maybe that's why the performances against the bigger clubs have been really good, because, that's how Forest play. I totally agree. When you're playing against the teams that are in and around you, especially when you're at home, we don't take it to them. You've got to be on the front foot. And Forest are very rarely doing that. They constantly sit in, waiting to break them down. And the clubs that are around us, they're pretty much the same. They're not comfortable with having possession of the ball and keeping it. So sometimes it becomes a bit of a stalemate. And Forest have struggled with the nick of goal, and then it's chasing your own tails then. And I think that's been the case. But I think as well, when they're playing against the bigger teams, it's a bit of, we've got nothing to lose. A bit of pressure off, really, And I think the pressure comes on is when you're playing against the teams in and around you. And I think that's shown a little bit last season with some of the players.
Last topic I wanted to discuss before we finish off, chaps, is around Gibbs-White in the England squad. A lot of consternation around him not being in is it 32? I can't remember, for this training squad. Hand on heart, Lewis, do you think he should have been or not?
I think he's got to be up for discussion. I think the biggest thing regarding England, this is my point of view. I've lost interest years ago. I'm not. International football is just, especially England, because it's not. It just, you never understand it. Every time a squad comes out, there's people that are in there that shouldn't be in there. None of it makes sense. And I think that when you look at it from a player's point of view, is that everyone wants to play international football. That's the thing. You want to play in the Premier League and you want to play for your country. And I think that if you get to the Premier League as a young English player, you then look around at your peers and the people in your position and you think, right, what are their numbers? What are their stats? If I can get as close to them, then hopefully I can get into the conversation. Well, the stats are there to be, especially this season, and he's in and around the people that are in his position. I just feel that, I think that he can be upset, and to think that he's not had a conversation, or he's not had the chance. I think especially with the kind of extra players that Gareth Southgate's took, where he's mentioned that he wants to have a look at these younger players in understanding. But yeah, I think it's a very tough one for him. In my opinion, I think if you look at Southgate and what he wants to do, I think there's a lot of players that sometimes he has his main players, the players that he trusts, the players that he wants, and I kind of feel that the ones that kind of maybe come on the outer skirts of the squad, the players that he knows are never really gonna force their way in, or they're never really gonna put pressure on him. And if you look at it, like for instance, like Curtis Jones, they're playing. We kind of are confident now that come 3 weeks' time when he makes the cut, we're pretty all confident now. We know that's who's going to come out of that thing, and they're the players that have gone there. And I just think sometimes he doesn't want to pick players on form that are going to come in and maybe ruffle a few feathers, which puts him under a bit more pressure to maybe after the players that he's used to playing the tournament and every time they meet up. And I just think the likes of Gibbs-White, the way he plays, what he does, I think he's got the bit of arrogance. I think he goes into that squad, and I think he really stands up and starts ruffling a few feathers where to say, hold on a minute, you can't leave me out. And in all honesty, I don't think Gareth Southgate wants that.
No, that's a good point. I mean, it's really hard. It seems like to be a number 10 and get in that England squad. Like Maddison is probably the one he's competing with. And he took him an eternity of good football to get in. Southgate does seem very stubborn on it. 2 questions, Kelvin, and I'll ask you the same one. Firstly, do you think he should have been in? And secondly, is it a good thing for us that he isn't because he gets rest? Or is it a bad thing for us because he thinks, well, I can't get in the England squad playing at Forest. I need to go to a bigger club. So how would you look at it from that point of view? Oh, hang on, I need to unmute you. Sorry, that was stupid. That was my fault. Right, I'm unmuting you. Start again.
Yeah, I think if you play for a top 6 club, not even a top 6, but somewhere at the top half of the table, I think he would have been in that squad. I honestly do. I think it's because he's at Forest that he hasn't made the squad. I don't think he'd be in the squad that's going to go to the Euros. I think he would have been in that bigger squad, and when it's cut, he would have been one that's going to get cut. I think he would have been that, but it would have just given that confidence and made him know that he's in and around it. But he hasn't even done that. It's a strange one, very strange, because like Lewis said, the stats don't lie, and his stats are brilliant. I think he would ruffle up some feathers. I think Lewis is bang on there. I think that's probably not worrying for Gareth Southgate, but something that he probably doesn't want going into a tournament. He probably should have maybe had him in and around a friendly or something like that, but he didn't. But I think he should personally be in the squad. I think he's been brilliant for Forest. I think he can play the 10. I think he helps the team. He works so hard. He likes tackling. He's good, decent in the air. And obviously, he can unlock defences. But, you say Maddison's probably the one competing with him to be in that squad. I would choose Gibbs-White over Maddison all day long. So, yeah, that's a personal preference. Gareth Southgate's obviously has gone for Maddison. But I think a rest, yeah, as a fan, you look at it and you think, yes, he's going to come back fresh. But then, like you've just said, Matt, it's going to be a question in Gibbs-White's mind, because I'm telling you now for a fact the reason why he's not mentioned is because he plays for Forest, and not because he doesn't. Southgate doesn't like Nottingham Forest. It's because of where we are in the league. I know you're going to say Pickford plays for Everton and they're down there, but he's been a long member of that team, so that's not someone new. But I think that's the only reason, to be honest with you. I think if he was at a top 6 club, a Tottenham or United or someone like that, he'd be in the squad without a doubt. So, yeah, to answer your question, it is worrying to think that Gibbs-White might think he needs to move on to progress his career internationally anyway.
A few people in the comments saying, what about the Palace players? But I guess they finished 10th, and Eze's been playing really well for ages. Henderson's been in the squad before. Adam Wharton's probably the exception, but we've got no depth in central midfield. So I can sort of see why he's come in, and he is very good as well. So yeah, that would be my answers. The Palace ones, and
Yeah.
Branthwaite at Everton is Branthwaite Everton is an exceptional talent. And well, Kelvin can speak to me better than this. I don't think our centre halves are elite world class centre halves, are they?
Not like they used to be. Sol Campbell's, your Ferdinand, your John Terry's, not at all. You look at them as well; they're not getting any younger. Harry Maguire's, he's getting on a little, not getting on, but he's getting older. And obviously, Gareth Southgate loves him for whatever reason. So yeah, the boy at Everton coming through, he looks like he could be a top centre half. So Gareth Southgate's seen that. He's not picking him off one game. I'm sure the scouts will watch them every week, and he's performed brilliantly. So has Gibbs-White, I know, but like I say, he's a young lad. This lad, and centre defence is probably where we need a bit of quality coming up. He's a young boy. Gibbs-White's position, there's a hell of a lot of good players that play that position for England. So it's probably two different comparisons as well, to be fair.
Just lastly on Morgan, and before we finish, Lewis, would he benefit? He's given us 2 good years. I'd love him to have another one with us. Would he benefit from it being the man in the attack as he really is now? In fact, it's his whole midfield, really. Does he benefit from that more than going to a Spurs or a Chelsea or a Newcastle, where he's probably a little bit more in and out of the team? Would that extra year help him more in the long term?
Yeah, to be honest, I think if he was to leave and he was to go to one of them clubs you mentioned, I think the money that we were talking about, he isn't going to go there to not play. So whoever, if he was to go to one of them teams, he'll be going there to be a main focal point of that team, because the money it's going to cost to get him out. But I think if you look at him here, I think you can see that he loves the club. The fans love him. I think he's happy, and I think that he's playing really good football. And sometimes you have to look and think, well, do you know what? If something comes, something comes. But at the end of the day, at this point in time, I'm at a fantastic football club, a football club that's still in the Premier League, that I'm a major part of, and I'm getting better season by season. I think it also helps that he's got a pre-relationship with the manager. So again, I think it's one of them things. We have to understand that when you are at the bottom of the table and you have players playing very well, that the big clubs are going to come sniffing. That's just part and parcel of football. But again, it's going to take a lot of money to get him out. And I think we've just got to be kind of looking at it from, if someone comes and someone puts up that kind of money, that's just the reality of football, of where we are at a football club at this point in time. But if not, we've got a fantastic player, a player that's only going to be better and stronger next year. Hopefully now he gets a chance to rest his body, and come back fighting. And then hopefully with the manager and the board, they can put a few more pieces around him in the team, and we can really push on. So listen, I think we can't look at it with the negatives. Yes, I know if he goes, we're going to lose him, and it's going to be a big loss. But we have to understand that sometimes the position that we're in, that's going to be part of football at this point in time, when we've got really good players playing well. So if not, we've got a fantastic player, hopefully ready to kick off in August and the start of the season.
Right. Any final words, Kelvin? Your sunbed is calling you. Anything you want to say before we go? What sunbed? You don't need to go on a sunbed. You could be on the side of a beach or a pool or something. But any final words before we go?
No, I think I just touching on that with Gibbs-White. I think it's a catch-22. I think he's probably going to want to go and play, for a club in the top half of the table to get in the England squad. But then on the flip side, the club want to get in the top 10, so they need to keep players like Gibbs-White. So to convince him to stay, I don't think he's not publicly said he wants to leave. I'm sure he hasn't said that to the club. But the good thing about the owner, he looks like he just wants to keep improving. He's not shy to bring the players in. So I think they will, and I think Gibbs-White, I think he'll stay. I do, Gibbs-White. I don't think he'll go. But I think this will be, he could go by January if Forest aren't improving, because I think he will say that. And I think even the manager might say that, I have one more season with us, because at the minute, he's a player that's got the ability and the quality that should be playing in the top half of the Premier League and should be getting an England squad. So he believes that, and he'll probably see that, you know, I'm going to give it another crack with Forest. He does love the club. You can see that, you know, gives his all every time he plays. So, you know, I think not just for Gibbs-White, but for the club to keep players like Gibbs-White, it's going to be an interesting summer.
Lewis, an umbrella is probably calling you with the weather over here at the moment. Any final words before we go?
No, nothing.
Very good, very good. One day you'll have something. I'll be completely blown away when you have something that you want to plug. Right, just from me then, back tomorrow with a few of the regulars doing a bit of a season review from the fan point of view. And then, actually, I don't know what's happening after that. It's all pretty chilled out at the moment, but do join us for that. Here is the link for getting live show tickets. I'll put that in the live chat now. So hopefully see as many people as we can there for that. And just finally, as ever, do us a favor. If you haven't already, hit like on the video, hit subscribe, become a channel member, and give us a lovely review on iTunes. This whole stream, it said there's between 1 and 4 people watching us, which is really disconcerting, even though I know it's not true because the chat's really busy and I'm sure there's hundreds. But it's been good to have your company throughout. Kelvin, thank you very much for joining us.
No problem. It's been a pleasure.
It has. You're a good man. You're in disgustingly good shape sat there while I'm drowning in a massive hoodie, but good to have you with us. Lewis, good to have you with us as ever.
No problem. Anytime.
Good man. Good man. Thanks very much, everyone. Good to have you with us. Have a good day, and we shall see you soon.